Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everybody. It is a super exciting day today. Today is the first anniversary of the very first Friday Friends. I am so excited. I even wore some sparkles today to celebrate. I am so excited because in the last year, Friday Friends has enabled us to reach tens of thousands of people with information that they have truly needed throughout the pandemic and beyond. So we've reached the 1 year mark, but Friday Friends, I'm happy to say, is going to continue. Super excited about that. So for those of you who might just be joining for the first time today, I am Deb Burton. I am the founder and creator of RI Elder Info and rielderinfo.com. And Friday Friends is my live streaming show that I do every Friday at 9 a.m. to bring information and resources out to the community on things that can help you remain independent or access things that you maybe didn't know existed in the state, because Rhode Island really does have a wealth of resources for our older adults and for caregivers and for the professionals who serve them. But sometimes those resources are not always able to shout from the mountaintops. So this is the mountaintop, and I help people shout. I am so grateful to our sponsors and our donors that have made this possible. You know, throughout the pandemic, it's been really tricky for funding and that kind of thing. So everybody who has gone on RI Elder Info and hit that donate button, you know, even $1 can make a difference. So I am unbelievably grateful to the organizations who have stood with us and said it is really important that people have access to reliable information throughout the pandemic and beyond. So big shout out to my sponsor, Oak Street Health. They have 4 locations. There's one over by the Christmas Tree Shop Plaza. There's one by the old St. Joe's in Providence, one over on Branch Avenue, and another in Woonsocket over by the Planet Fitness. They have community rooms with air conditioning, especially on a hot day like today, and lots of events that are going on every day of the week in all of their places. So huge shout out to Oak Street Health for their support. I also have a big shout out to Tamarisk Assisted Living Facility. Susan Adler over there is actually just one of the nicest people that you would ever want to meet, even on a personal level. And her residents are really part of her family. So if you're looking for an assisted living facility where you want to know that your loved one is treated like family, you know, the family that you like, reach out to Susan over at Tamarisk Assisted Living. Another huge shout out going out to United Healthcare. They are doing so many amazing things for individuals who receive Medicare and Medicaid. They have programs for veterans. They have programs that provide $25 gift card to the local pharmacy so that you can get some of those products that maybe aren't necessarily health insurance product. Great programs. I really encourage you to reach out to Jennifer Barrows over there. She's a wonderful person. I also could not do this. And if you look back to a year ago when I was doing this by myself, you will see the huge difference. I could not do this as well as it has become, or as good as it has become, without the support of Ben Barber from D&B Media. He is in the background running the show, making sure things show up in the bottom as we talk about them, really doing the magic behind the scenes. The other huge shout out I have to give is to England Studio, who without their support, I never would have had rielderinfo.com built. And it would not have been the award-winning website and resource that it is for tens of thousands of people at this point. So again, we're a nonprofit. We're here in Rhode Island. I am a real person. I surprise people quite frequently because I actually answer the phone. I do reply to texts and emails. So if you have a loved one and you need some help, some guidance, feel free to reach out to me. You can find a lot of information on rielderinfo.com. If you visit me every Friday, you're going to find new resources. But for this Friday, I am inviting back, I have invited back my very first guest who was brave enough to come on the show when this was still just an idea and I had never live streamed in this kind of capacity before. So I would like to welcome to the show my very brave first guest, Bill Flynn from the Senior Agenda Coalition.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Good morning, Bill. I am so glad that you were willing to take that leap of faith with me last year when, the pandemic had just hit. Live streaming was still kind of new to all of us. Heck, Zoom was new to a lot of us. And you were willing to come on the show.
Well, I tell you, I've had a long career in this stuff, going way back to early job when I helped put together a once a month thing on the old UHF and Channel 27 in Worcester. And so even though interpersonally sometimes I may be a little shy, if you point I'm like my granddaughter. If you point a camera in my direction, I really enjoy doing this very much.
Good. So can you tell our guests who maybe didn't see the first show last year, because it was still new, what is the Senior Agenda Coalition?
Sure. So Senior Agenda Coalition, we're a nonprofit community organizing and community education agency. Primarily, we're a membership base. We have agency members, and we also have then several hundred of individual members. And we were started by the Great Panthers of Rhode Island back in the day, and eventually we spun off. We were started, and this is relevant because we have one coming up next year. It was just a group of people who wanted to do a governor's candidates forum to get senior issues on the agenda of candidates for governor, and that remains very important. And I would say to you, our main mission has been to promote aging in the community with independence and dignity for seniors, and in a way also something that caregivers want. And it also, it doesn't mean that and we're going to talk about this, nursing homes and assisted livings are important parts of what seniors need as well. But what we hear from seniors consistently is they really, if at all possible, they want to remain in the community for as long as possible. So that's our mission. And we do it really through mobilizing people and turning out large numbers of people. So one other thing we do is, now the last few years, is a turnout with the Speaker of the House and Senate President, and we try to get our member agencies and others. We get 4 or more than 400 people in a room, and they hear some testimony from people, seniors, caregivers, and it gives them an incentive then to try to do the right thing legislatively. So community organizing really is just helping people get the power to get what they want, and senior power is something that needs to continue to be built here in Rhode Island.
Do the Great Panthers still exist here in Rhode Island?
In Rhode Island, it does not. And has not. When I took the job in 2008, for several years, Great Panthers were still around. And what really happened was they aged out. In that they, as their board members and a lot of the other members got older, they kind of struggled to attract new, younger members, either for their board or not. And the Great Panthers nationally was a little bit different. They were right here in Rhode Island. It was really focused on the needs of low-income seniors. Nationally, it was more diverse than that. But no, so eventually it was agreed that Senior Agenda, would move on. And at that time, then the Great Panther Board made a decision. So they sort of joined with Senior Agenda. So they didn't just go away, but a number of Great Panther people then became part of Senior Agenda.
That is awesome. So in the last year, Senior Agenda has had some big wins. Can you share with the viewers throughout the pandemic, what are some of the things that Senior Agenda Coalition has been able to get done, even despite the pandemic?
Yeah, well, really, the big thing has been the passage of a couple pieces of legislation, particularly. So the first one people may have heard of is called Raise the Bar. And this was actually the second year of this legislation. And I don't want to bog down the details, but basically, because of what the pandemic showed about how risky during a pandemic nursing homes can be, this is going to mandates that nursing homes must attain a certain average level of staffing, and also that they incentivizes them that they must pay their workers more money, and with any new money they get from the state, 80% of that must go to their workers, their direct care workers. And I think the role we played, was, again, organizing and people to reach out to their legislators. But the lead group on this was Service Employees International Union, SEIU, who they have members in I think 6 to 7 nursing homes already. And I think what it got overwhelming support in the General Assembly. I think the pandemic was just something that hit home for so many people. And we, as a state, had the second highest fatality rate among nursing home residents of any state in the country. And that's not a statistic we want to have. But I think, so that was just huge. Another piece of legislation at the same time that got passed this year, I think was due more. This had been around for years. It's called the At-Home Cost Share Program. And this is for help seniors and their families, caregivers, who could use some basic home care assistance, but they're over income for getting it paid by Medicaid. So this has been around for a number of years. I think a lot of people didn't know about it, but what it did, it raised the income level. So for an individual, then the max income before was about almost $25,000. It raised it up to $34,000, made people more eligible to participate in the program. It funds basic services like being an adult day program or basic home care with activities of daily living. It's not a program that's going to cover, if people are getting heavy, medical care at home or something. But it's a really good program, and it's pretty straightforward. So getting that expanded, and the state putting up the money to try to cover, was a big win, because we've been backing this bill for I think 4 to 5 years. So those were two very, very big wins for us.
And so I think, for the viewers, so the Raise the Bar legislation, that provided a minimum number of hours of resident care in nursing homes. Now, that doesn't mean that each person will get a minimum number of hours. It's a statistical average.
That's the important thing. I think when some people saw that, so it's a number that's already really tracked. The nursing homes report their numbers to the Department of Health, as you know. So, but yes, I think there's an agreement. It's a meaningful measure. So the number for 2022 is 3.58 hours per day per person, but that's just an average. In fact, so some will get less, some will get more. It goes up. It gets phased up. It goes up to 3.81 hours in 2023. But the biggest, I think, thing, the reason why we just felt it was important, and you might have some thoughts in this, I know you have some background in caring for seniors, is, we and others focus, and we need to significantly raise the salaries for workforce, whether it's in nursing homes and community. But from workers, direct care workers at nursing homes, we have heard that the biggest reason they left doing that was not the wages, but the fact that some of the nursing homes just did not have adequate care or plans if somebody called in. And you'd hear stories of, here I am on the weekend with a floor of seniors who need a lot of care, and I'm usually caring for about 10 to 12, and now I got to care for 20. And they said the stress of that, I mean, you just kind of imagine that, was crucial. And I think there have been findings. I mean, it was also one of the reasons why pandemics, hit nursing homes hard. So increasing, so the whole goal here, and I think if nursing homes can't get to that, and there's a time frame, so it's the idea is trying to get voluntary compliance, but if there's not compliance at some point, there are financial penalties. And while this is not our goal in any way, but I think realistically, about a third of nursing homes already meet the standard or are close. But I think there may be some nursing homes that just can't, that may have to close. And we would say if they can't meet that kind of minimum standard, then that may need to happen.
And so you bring up a lot of really good points. So there is not a minimum staff to resident ratio. And from a worker's perspective, if you are, say you've just worked the 7 to 3 and the second shift doesn't come in, now you're mandated to do a 3 to 11. And for a lot of people, the potential of that happening is something that they say, I'm not going to take that risk of, not being able to go pick up my kids at daycare or something along those lines. So I think it's something that it is a matter of increasing the wages to attract more people into the workforce, but also to really recognize that there is dignity in providing the care for some of our most vulnerable people. And I think, when you're hearing that the CNAs and other staff are leaving because they're short-staffed, it's not because they are cold or don't want to do the work. They actually love their patients. One of the things that the pandemic did is, if you were not someone who really loved your job, you probably left early on in the pandemic. There are folks who've stayed right there because those residents are like their family. And to have many people, say you have 20 people on your assignment because you don't have enough coworkers, that pulls at your heart because you want to make sure that you have time to listen to Mary's story about caring for her children back in the 50s. You want to be able to hear about Bob's fly fishing and not have it be a production line sense as you're caring for your residents, because you want to care for them, not just a body on a conveyor belt of get dressed, get fed, get to the bathroom, get dressed, get fed, get to the bathroom. Like, you want to be able to have that interaction. And I think that's one of the things that makes the career challenging. And so we need to understand that we need folks to come into the career and afford them respect. I've heard a lot of harsh and unkind things about the people who do the work of a CNA that are not true. And of course, in any career, I don't care if you are a bank CEO, I don't care if you are the trash collector. There are some people who are just not nice people. And yeah, that can happen in healthcare. But the vast majority are people who have good hearts, who want to be able to just kind of love on their residents. And so I think, having the mandatory minimum number of hours is a really good move. I hadn't thought about the perspective that you just shared that, if there are facilities that are not able to make that minimum, maybe that's not necessarily a good thing for the residents who are there. But that's not to say that they're getting bad care either at this time. So if you have a loved one in a facility that's not able to meet those, please don't panic.
That is so well said. Everything you have just said. that clearly would only be said by someone who's been there and understands it. And it also cues me in that in this legislation there are other metrics and things that are tracked and measured to improve quality. And so one of them is, and I don't know if they have to, maybe they report this now, but anyways, the nursing home must report how many times people have had to double shift, just as you described. How often is that happening? How frequently? And I think then that is seen as, a red flag. And I think and all this is, the Department of Health is really responsible for tracking this, but I think there are, if it reaches a certain point, there are financial penalties for that. You could say there are financial incentives to try to, reduce the number of people, short shifting, shifts being short. So there are some other things in the legislation that may be getting too much into the details. I think but there are measures, and over time, in other words, the idea, this was a negotiation. This bill was a compromise between the original bill that we backed and what we came up with. So now I think it takes more of it. It gives more time, fewer penalties, spreads it out to try to give nursing homes a chance to comply with this and not be overly punitive.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that folks understand that the money that's been allocated for some of this, 80% of it is going through to the staff. So it's not, sometimes we see in other parts of the country, facilities that are owned by big corporations, making this huge profit and then walking away. This legislation is actually putting 80%, so 80 cents of every dollar is going towards the staff.
Well, with this caveat, Deb, I think what it applies to is any increases in the rates that state is paying under Medicaid.
Yeah.
And overall, 2/3 of nursing home residents are on Medicaid. So again, that's an average. So some fewer, some more. But it does mandate then that it originally said 100% of any rate increase money, any new money, if you will, would have to go to direct care workers. And one thing is, it's not just CNAs either. It would, as far as tracking how much direct care someone's getting, it includes physical therapists, any other people that are coming in and providing care. Their hours, that all gets counted, but it definitely has disincentives for having problems, with too many, and even how many people have had to, do double shifts. It's not saying you can't have a double shift, but if it's kind of a regular thing at your facility, then clearly that's a big red flag about quality and about, you just don't have enough of a backup or whatever you need.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, hopefully we will get more people coming into the career. What is Senior Agenda working on for this year? What are your goals this year?
Yeah, I think we're kind of working on that now. I think the biggest thing really is actually there are several things that we did a lot to help get through. And I'll give one example. I think we're trying to work on how to get more accountability and for us to track how some of these things are being implemented. But starting with when I first took this, and our goal was rebalancing long-term care. What did that mean? When I started, this is something that's tracked in every state. What percentage of our total Medicaid dollars, which is federal and state money combined, what percent is spent on home care? What percent is spent on residential care, mostly nursing home? And back then it was 10% on home care and 90% on residential care. And the national average back then was about 33% home care, and that has gone up. So we've passed legislation saying we need to track this and need to get a report on it. What we really need to do, though, is we've got to get better tracking of that in a timely way, and then really saying to our legislators, but particularly administrators of our senior programs, who's responsible for, who from the very top is responsible for this goal, and how are we doing? And because without, one of the things we've learned, and I think we haven't paid enough attention, is it's not enough to pass. This is not just in senior stuff, but when you're advocating for change, it isn't enough to pass the legislation. Then you got to do, in some ways, as far as organizing, it's more difficult, but tracking, is it being implemented? How is it being implemented? And the example of that, I think, a thing we're right now, paying attention to. Several years ago, we worked also with SEIU, working to get a model from, in some states, it's called independent provider. And basically it adds one more component to different, whether it's an agency, individual, one more component to providing home care. And this component is a structure managed, supervised by the state, but where in appropriate cases and it's vetted and all that, people can hire a friend or neighbor who's vetted from an agency or is vetted even directly themselves. But implementing this has gone very slowly, and the big problem is really it takes way too long for people who need Medicaid long-term care to become eligible. It can take up to 3 months. And this is also true for this at-home care that we just passed. I was bragging on that at a meeting, and the person from an agency that has to implement this, a nonprofit, said, so it's taking way too long now, and now you're just going to add more people by making more people eligible. She really said, we got to fix that. So some of this stuff is, kind of inside baseball, if you will. But I think we've realized we've just got to along. I mean, particularly, and I didn't mention it, in all of this work for the last 7 or 8 years, we're part of something called Voices for Better Health Care, and the Rhode Island Organizing Project and Economic Progress Institute are our partners in that. So part of it is, I think, getting progress on this, and also getting our legislators to pay attention to this, because I think that's with senior care, things change fast. A bad fall, something happens, and or maybe a diagnosis. But the care to keep the person at home, the care is needed a lot quicker.
Yeah. If they're asking for help, then the help is needed now, not. And to give the viewers perspective, if you have a loved one who needs help and you're applying for Medicaid today, it's July 16th today when we're live streaming this. I don't know when you might be watching it, but today's July 16th. That means you'll get approved for Medicaid roughly after Columbus Day weekend, middle of October. And then what we're also seeing is that there is home and community-based staff shortage going on. So it might take another month or two to find a staff member to be able to come out to your house. So even though today is July 16th and you need help today, that help might not come before Thanksgiving, just to put it in perspective. And you're right. That's one of those things that when we talk about rebalancing, Rhode Island's numbers are skewed towards long-term care facility placement, and it is not like that in other states. So it's definitely an area that we can improve in. greatly. But I think for the most part, I mean, I've been hanging out with older adults in different healthcare jobs kind of thing for well over 30 years. I've met one person in a nursing home who wanted to be there, and I've talked to thousands. So when people want to stay home, it is actually more financially viable to provide them the support services that they need in their home than in long-term care. And in no way am I saying that there's not a place for nursing homes and assisted living facilities, because there absolutely is a need for that continuum of care. But I'm also seeing where folks need to be connected to what are those other community-based resources when there is a shortage. And that, I mean, that's part of why RI Elder Info was born, is to let people know that there are resources, not necessarily the ones who can help you get in and out of the shower, but other things that can support you to stay home. And in the case of Senior Agenda Coalition, like, raise your voice to join the Senior Agenda Coalition, to participate with the legislators, to say, hey, you know what? No, I don't want plan A to be long-term care for me if something happens. I want other alternatives.
Yeah, I just want to update the rebalancing numbers, because those were numbers from 2008.
Mm-hmm.
But so in the 13 plus years since, we're up to, we haven't, anyways, the latest estimate, which is within the last year and a half or so, is we're around 25 to 27% home care. That's an improvement, but you can do that. If it took 13 years to get to that. The national numbers now are, though, that the national average for states is 41%, and there are about a dozen states now that are over 50-50. More than half of that money is spent for home care. And oh yeah, I mean, the catch is, I mean, once you achieve this, but it takes years to get to that, but to really make faster progress, there are big savings in state and federal dollars. But I think our problem has been having permanent people in, even within, state services running the show, continuity of people who have really taken this on and then are there for a number of years, holding people accountable, trying to get funding as needed. It requires upfront investment. Legislators, we tell them about, if we had more invested here, we could do this. And they said, well, okay, so like next year, how many fewer people will be in nursing homes? We said, this isn't going to happen in a year. The one thing we've tried to do is we've talked a lot to other states that have been leaders in this. And particularly, we've gotten to know some people there very well, especially in Washington State and in Minnesota. And there are different ways to skin this cat, excuse the phrase. But overall, the one thing is clear. It takes leadership and commitment from the top down, meaning the governor, and also it takes years to make that kind of systemic change. And so I would say to you, for right now, and I think for this year, is we've gotten good legislation. The independent provider raised the bar, at-home cost share, that we're focusing our efforts more now on really getting full commitment to those and seeing them really make a difference for people.
That is awesome. So, Bill, if people want to join Senior Agenda Coalition, get your newsletter, that kind of thing, how can they reach you?
Yes. So they can call 401-952-6527, which is my direct contact. But if they're online, my email is bill.flynn, FLYNN, at seniораgendari.org. Or they can go to our website, www.seniораgendari.org, and they can become a member and donate right there. I mean, I should have led with that. I kind of backed into that one, but yeah, to just go to our website. And we also, we want to, one of the things we've been able to do in thinking about the pandemic one of the ways we really find out what's going on out there, because we're very small and we don't deliver services in any way, but we've been able to we do small group meetings where we ask people, share a story, what's working, what isn't. And that we've been able to do those virtually. And so we're missing people who aren't on the internet, but so in places where we've now been able to talk to a lot more people, for example, in the Woonsocket area, in Jamestown, Block Island, Block Island, I don't know, 2 islands. Virtual house meetings have really worked well. And you keep a small number of people, and then that's how we really hear what's going on. And it's important to understand, too, what's working. They aren't just gripe sessions. So if people connect with us, we can also let you know when we're having one of those meetings to see if you're interested.
I think that's really important for the viewers to understand, is that you're not just somebody who sits in an office. You're actually out talking to people in the community. You want to hear from them, and have that conversation. And I think one of the things that's also really important for the viewers to understand is that for Senior Agenda Coalition, my experience is that you're not about talking at people. You're about listening and asking questions and saying, what is happening? What is your story? And that you're always looking for that information. So, Bill, are you guys a nonprofit?
Oh, absolutely. No, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. All donations to us are tax deductible. And, and we do some lobbying and stuff, which the 501c3 can do. You're just limited, and so I don't spend much time at the State House. But I wanted to say something else right there.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is really an important part of our independence. We accept no state dollars and no federal dollars, because there are no free lunches. Funding for, and I mean, if only one. So we get funding from several different foundations, and we wouldn't even want to have all our funding from one foundation, because anyone who's funding you, whether they say so or not, wants eventually some say in what you're doing. So there's nothing illegal or wrong, other than for us, our most important thing, and legislators told me this a long time ago, is we are independent. We call them like we see them. 2 years ago, we didn't think Save the Bar really was going to make a difference. We didn't support it. The pandemic happened. We had to really rethink it and what we were hearing from people. So yeah, we need to get more members. And finally, before I forget, we do the annual consumer conference in the fall, which we had to cancel. In October 27th, we are doing an in-person half-day conference. It's the only consumer type conference I know of at the Crown Plaza in Warwick. And in 2022, and this is going to be really exciting, there's, the Governor's Candidates Forum. There are so many people running for governor, and we're going to have it before the primary in September. We may need a bigger room. But when we've done that, we try to get 400 or 500 people, and we ask them, have they got a senior story? But then we have specific things we want them to commit to. So it's going to be an exciting next 12 months.
That is awesome. So I encourage everybody who's watching to reach out to Senior Agenda RI. If you can, make a donation, because when you're a nonprofit and you're receiving money without, I don't want to say strings attached, but when you're getting unrestricted donations, it is very helpful. So you want to have financial resources so that you can continue to speak up.
Yeah,
that's really important.
We do an e-newsletter also that we finally do a monthly, and you don't need to be a dues paying member. You can just sign up for that and get on our mailing list and an e-newsletter. We don't share our list with anybody. Yep. I don't even share. Our board members can't even access it. If they want to get a message out, it goes through us. And you can email or call us if you want to get that e-newsletter, and that's really important. And we send that to about 700 people now, but we want to up that. We want all those 10,000 people who watch this show, and we could really quickly rebalance long-term care, for example, if we had that many people.
Exactly. So everybody, you know what you have to do. You got to sign up for that newsletter. You got to speak up. That's the big thing. Bill, I really appreciate you being brave enough to be my first guest and coming back to celebrate our 1-year anniversary. And what you're doing is so important.
Deb,
people really need to know.
What your organization is doing is very important. It filled an enormous gap that is there that people really need. Unbiased information from someone who's not selling stuff.
Exactly.
And it's absolutely vital. And we're very, very glad you're there doing it.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Okay.
Well, everybody, it has been our 1-year anniversary show. I did not know that was coming. That was awesome. Oh, how fun. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. I encourage everybody to tune in on August 5th for the Calling All Veterans virtual conference. Big shout out to the sponsors for that. It's Oak Street Health, Cross Country Mortgage, the Care Concierge, Morgan Health Center, and Independent Benefit Solutions. I look forward to seeing you all on August 5th, and see you again next week. Have a great day.
If you liked this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com.